There's a fine line between being friendly and being foolish. And for too many people, that line disappears in the name of being liked. We live in a culture that praises kindness, generosity, and empathy. All noble traits, yes, but they become dangerous when practiced without boundaries. When friendliness lacks discernment, it turns from a virtue into a vulnerability. What was meant to build connection becomes an open invitation for others to take advantage of you. You see, the world doesn't just respond to what you give, it responds to what you allow. And if you're always the one who says yes first, the one who smiles to smooth over tension, the one who agrees just to avoid conflict, you're not being friendly, you're being manipulated. And that's the harsh truth most people don't want to admit. People who consistently overextend themselves in the name of friendliness often end up exhausted, resentful, and invisible. Why? Because they've confused kindness with submission, they've mistaken politeness for self-worth, and they've allowed others to redefine their value by how agreeable they are. There's a cost to being too friendly, a heavy cost. It's not just your time or your energy that's on the line. It's your reputation, your self-respect, your inner peace. Every time you bite your tongue when someone disrespects you, every time you tolerate rudeness to keep the peace, every time you lower your standards so someone else feels more comfortable, you're slowly erasing yourself. You're telling the world, my needs don't matter. My values are negotiable. My peace is expendable. And here's the worst part. Once you set that tone, the people around you adjust to it. They begin to expect it. They come to believe that your silence is consent, that your patience is weakness, and that your endless friendliness means you have no backbone. Some people don't take advantage of you because they're evil. They do it because you made it easy. Because you taught them that you'll always say yes, even when it hurts you. Because you smiled when you should have spoken up. Because you kept showing up for people who wouldn't even pick up the phone for you. And when you offer yourself freely without discernment, the people who benefit from that arrangement aren't going to stop you. They're not going to ask, are you okay? Are you sure you're not overextending yourself? No, they'll keep taking as long as you keep giving. And by the time you finally hit your breaking point, they'll act surprised. They'll say, but you never said anything. And they'll be right, you never did. Boundaries aren't just about protecting your time, they're about protecting your identity, your values, your standards. They're a declaration that says, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I know what I will and will not accept. Without them, your friendliness becomes a liability, not an asset. It attracts users, manipulators, energy drainers, and opportunists, and eventually, it breaks you down until you barely recognize yourself. But be honest, you weren't born to be everyone's emotional sponge. You weren't put on this earth to absorb people's chaos in the name of being nice. There's a deeper version of kindness, one that comes from strength, not weakness. It's the kind of kindness that says, I care, but I won't tolerate disrespect. I'll help you, but I won't allow myself to be used. I'll support you, but not at the cost of betraying myself. That version of kindness is powerful. It doesn't chase approval, it doesn't bend to be accepted, and it doesn't feel guilty for saying no. People might call it cold. They might say you've changed. But that's only because they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries, and when you finally stop giving yourself away, the people who were taking the most will be the loudest to complain. But let them complain. Because your mental health, your dignity, your peace, they're worth protecting. You can't serve the world from an empty cup. You can't lead others if you're constantly sacrificing your truth. And you cannot live with purpose if you're spending your energy just trying to be liked. So yes, be friendly, be warm, be giving, but never forget to be wise. Because friendliness without boundaries is not generosity, it's surrender. And you weren't made to surrender your worth to anyone. Kindness is a strength, but only when it is grounded in self-respect. Too often, we're taught that kindness means always saying yes, that being good means being endlessly available, that being generous means tolerating anything and everything, no matter how draining, how disrespectful, how unfair. But that's not kindness. That's self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. And the more you operate that way, the more you lose sight of where kindness ends and weakness begins. You were not born to be a doormat. You were not put on this earth to be walked over by people who confuse your patience with passivity. Yet so many people live their lives believing that if they just keep being nice enough, the world will eventually return the favor. But here's the truth most don't want to hear. The world doesn't reward kindness unless that kindness comes with a spine. It rewards confidence. It rewards clarity. It rewards those who can balance empathy with standards. Because when you give your kindness away without boundaries, you're not helping, you're enabling, you're not healing. And over time, that will leave you bitter, exhausted, and invisible. Kindness, when rooted in weakness, becomes permission for others to treat you however they wish. But when rooted in self-worth, kindness becomes a boundary. It becomes a statement, I respect myself and I'll respect you, but not at the cost of my peace. That's the kind of kindness that transforms lives, the kind that empowers, not enables, the kind that inspires, not depletes. The problem is, we've glamorized the image of the endlessly forgiving, endlessly agreeable person. We romanticize suffering in silence. We act like the highest version of ourselves is the one who lets everything slide, who tolerates everything, who bends to keep everyone else comfortable. But there's nothing noble about betraying yourself. There's nothing heroic about allowing others to take and take until you have nothing left to give. You can be kind and still say no. You can be loving and still walk away. You can be warm and still hold the line. Because if your kindness costs you your boundaries, it's too expensive. If it costs you your voice, your rest, your joy, it's not kindness, it's self-sabotage. Real kindness doesn't just look outward, it starts within. And when you learn to be kind to yourself first, you start treating your time like it matters. You stop entertaining people who drain you. You stop over-explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop giving second chances to people who haven't even earned the first. Being kind does not mean being naive. It does not mean lowering your standards. It does not mean excusing behavior that hurts you just because you're afraid of being called difficult. If people walk away because you finally stood up for yourself, let them walk. If they're uncomfortable with your growth, they were never committed to your wholeness. True kindness is courageous, not convenient. It's honest, not enabling. It's real, not people-pleasing. You deserve to show up in the world as someone who is kind, but not compliant. Open-hearted, but not open to abuse. Generous, but not gullible. When you master that balance, people won't just see you as kind, they'll see you as powerful. At some point in your life, you must decide, do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected? Because the more you chase approval, the more you dilute your authority. The more you bend to make others comfortable, the more you betray the truth of who you are. And here's the trap. Most people don't realize how much of their identity they've handed over to the opinions of others until it's too late. Approval seeking is subtle. It doesn't always look like begging for compliments or validation. Sometimes it shows up as silence when you should speak up. Sometimes it looks like agreeing with something you don't believe in just to avoid confrontation. Sometimes it's staying in a relationship, a friendship, a job, or a version of yourself that no longer fits, just because you're afraid of what people will say if you choose to grow. But the truth is, you will never lead a powerful life if you need everyone's permission to be yourself. You can't live boldly when your every move is filtered through the lens of, will they still like me? Because here's the hard reality. Not everyone will. Not everyone will approve of your decisions. Not everyone will understand your path. Not everyone will applaud your boundaries or your transformation. Now that's okay, because the goal of life is not universal approval, it's authentic alignment. When your self-worth is built on the foundation of external validation, you become fragile. Every criticism feels like a threat. Every rejection feels like an identity crisis. You start saying yes when you want to say no. You agree outwardly while screaming inwardly, and you think you're keeping the peace, but really, you're just silencing yourself. And slowly that silence becomes your identity, until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person looking back. Seeking approval is like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. It only makes you more dependent, more drained, more desperate. But here's the truth that sets people free. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need applause to walk in purpose. You don't need consensus to live with conviction. When you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you start becoming respected by the right one. There's something powerful about a person who no longer performs. A person who knows what they believe, who stands tall in their values, who's willing to walk alone if it means walking in truth. That kind of person doesn't chase approval, they attract respect. They speak clearly, they lead boldly, they live fully, not because everyone agrees with them, but because they've stopped needing that agreement to feel whole. It takes courage to let go of your addiction to approval. It takes strength to stop people-pleasing and start purpose living. But once you make that shift, your relationships change, your decisions change, your energy changes, and most importantly, your self-respect skyrockets. Because now you're not molding yourself to be accepted. You're rising into who you were always meant to be. Your energy is one of your most valuable assets, more precious than money, more limited than time, and more revealing than words. Every day you wake up with a certain amount of it. And what you choose to give your energy to will define the quality of your life. The problem? Most people aren't spending their energy, they're leaking it, slowly, carelessly, unintentionally, and often in the name of being friendly. They waste it on people who don't listen but demand attention, on conversations that go nowhere, on trying to fix people who refuse to change, on apologies that were never owed. They give and give and give until there's nothing left for themselves. Then they wonder why they're so tired, why their motivation is gone, why their passion feels like a distant memory. But exhaustion isn't always about doing too much. Sometimes it's about doing too little of what actually feeds your spirit, and too much of what drains it. Every person you deal with is either an investment or an expense. They either multiply your energy or deplete it, but if you never stop to take account of who gets access to you, you'll find yourself emotionally bankrupt, mentally overloaded, and spiritually out of alignment. Being friendly with everyone sounds good in theory, but in practice it's unsustainable. You are not required to pour yourself out for everyone who knocks on your door, especially those who only show up when they need something, especially those who bring nothing but drama, gossip, neediness, or chaos. You don't owe everyone a piece of you. Your energy is sacred, and every time you spend it, it should be intentional. Every interaction should be a choice, not a reflex, because once you start paying attention, you realize just how much of your day is spent managing other people's expectations, emotions, and needs. And it's not that helping others is wrong. It's that helping the wrong people too often, for too long, eventually makes you bitter. You start resenting the very people you were once eager to help. And that resentment, that's your soul's way of saying you've crossed the line between service and self-sacrifice. The truth is, not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your time, your kindness, your concern. Some people only want connection when it's convenient for them. Some people only reach out when they're sinking, and they expect you to be the lifeboat every time. But what happens when you're the one drowning? What happens when your energy is low, when your heart is heavy, when your mind is stretched thin? You'll find that many of those same people are nowhere to be found. And that realization, as painful as it may be, is the beginning of wisdom. To protect your energy is not selfish, it's survival, it's stewardship, it's maturity. You cannot do great things in this life if you are constantly emotionally depleted. You cannot reach your goals, show up for your purpose, or be a force of good in this world if you're too tired from fighting battles that aren't even yours to begin with. Learn to say no without guilt. Learn to step back without explanation. Learn to rest without apology. Because your energy, once gone, is not easily replaced. You can lose money and earn it back. You can lose time and restructure it, but your energy, once drained, takes something deeper to restore. Be selective, be intentional, be wise. Start viewing your energy as the currency it is. Invest it where it grows, protect it where it leaks, guard it where it matters most. Because every minute of emotional labor you give away freely to the wrong people is a minute stolen from your purpose, your peace, and your power. There's a sacredness in vulnerability, a rawness, a truth, a beauty that connects us to each other in the most powerful ways. But just because vulnerability is beautiful doesn't mean it should be broadcast to everyone. Not every heart is safe, not every ear is trustworthy, and not every person who smiles at you has good intentions for your soul. One of the most painful lessons in life is realizing that some people only want access to your pain so they can use it later. They ask about your wounds not to understand, but to exploit. They listen not to comfort, but to collect. And if you're too friendly, too open, too trusting too soon, you hand over the most intimate parts of yourself to people who haven't earned that right. See, your vulnerability is sacred ground. It's your truth, your history, your scars, your healing. You don't owe that to just anyone, because once you give someone access to your vulnerability, you give them influence. Influence over how you see yourself. Influence over how you process your past. Influence over how safe you feel in your own skin. And if that person doesn't honor you, doesn't respect you, doesn't protect your heart, they will turn your truth into a weapon. They will twist it, mock it, use it against you in moments of tension or manipulation. And the hardest part, it's not just betrayal from strangers that hurts. It's betrayal from those you once believed were safe. The ones you trusted, the ones you confided in, the ones who encouraged your openness until they no longer found it convenient. And when that happens, something inside you begins to shrink. You start to second guess yourself. You become quieter, more cautious. And sometimes that caution turns into isolation. But the answer isn't to stop being vulnerable altogether. It's to become more discerning. You have to earn your way into someone's heart, and they must earn their way into yours, not through charm, not through attention, but through consistency, care, and a proven commitment to honoring your truth. You deserve to feel safe when you speak. You deserve to be heard without being judged, comforted without being controlled, understood without being exposed. But none of that is possible when you treat vulnerability like a handshake instead of a sacred gift. We must stop teaching people that being an open book is the ultimate form of strength. It's not. Strength is knowing which pages to turn and when. Strength is having the courage to be real, but the wisdom to protect your soul. Strength is trusting yourself enough to say, this part of me is not for public access. Not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. People will ask you to be vulnerable, but watch how they respond when you are. Do they hold your pain gently, or do they analyze it? Do they respond with empathy, or shift the focus back to themselves? Do they keep your words sacred, or do they leak them when it suits them? These are the clues. These are the signs. Your vulnerability should never be a test. It should be a treasure. And so, the next time you feel the urge to open up, pause. Ask yourself, has this person earned this part of me? Have they shown me that they can hold this without dropping it? Without turning it into leverage? Without shifting the spotlight? If the answer is no, hold it close. Protect it. Because not everyone deserves to walk through the delicate, holy ground of your story. There's a hard truth we must all face if we want to grow up emotionally, spiritually, and relationally. When you're too friendly, when your default is always to please, to accommodate, to say yes, you stop attracting respect and start attracting manipulators. You think you're being kind, you think you're building goodwill, but in reality, you're sending out a signal that says, I don't know how to say no, I'll stretch myself thin, I'll be there even when it hurts me, I'll tolerate more than I should. And the wrong people can smell that kind of energy from miles away. Manipulators are not drawn to strength. They're drawn to softness that lacks boundaries. Users are not attracted to confidence. They're attracted to insecurity that hides behind friendliness. If you've ever wondered why certain people always seem to gravitate toward you with their chaos, their endless needs, their emotional demands, their crises, it's not random. It's because you become a safe harbor for their dysfunction. And that's not a compliment, that's a warning. The over-friendly person becomes a magnet for manipulation because they've taught people how to treat them. They've demonstrated that they'll answer every call, reply to every message, entertain every excuse, and offer second chances before the first one has even been earned. And once a manipulator realizes you'll put their comfort above your own well-being, it's game over. They'll pull your strings and they'll play the victim. They'll apologize just enough to keep you around, but never enough to change. And because you're so friendly, so understanding, so eager to avoid conflict, you'll keep hoping they'll get better. You'll keep giving the benefit of the doubt. You'll keep ignoring the signs that scream this person is using you. The danger of being overly friendly is that you confuse compassion with compliance. You mistake loyalty for servitude. And before you know it, you become someone's emotional crutch, their free therapist, their unpaid caretaker. And when you finally get tired, when you finally push back or draw the line, they'll accuse you of being mean, of changing, of being selfish. But that's just another manipulation, because they were never truly interested in you, only in what they could take from you. What makes this so painful is that it's usually not strangers doing this, it's family, friends, co-workers, people you once trusted, people you once believed had your back. And that betrayal cuts deep, because you realize that what you thought was mutual care was actually one-sided convenience. But here's the silver lining. When you recognize this pattern, you can break it. You can rewrite the script. You can stop being the go-to for those who only show up when they need something. You can become someone who is still kind, still loving, still open-hearted, but no longer open to being used. That transformation starts with one word: no. It's the simplest, strongest boundary you'll ever learn to use. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to feel guilty about it. You don't have to justify it with long paragraphs or soft excuses. You just have to say it and stand behind it. Because the more you use your no, the more you protect your yes. The more you step back from manipulators, the more space you make for people who love you for you, not for what they can get out of you. So if your friendliness keeps leaving you feeling drained, disrespected, and disappointed, it's time to rethink your approach. Not everyone deserves your warmth. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. And the more you protect your energy, the clearer you'll see who was only around because they could take, not because they truly cared. Respect is not something you owe to everyone. It is not something you automatically give out because someone is older than you, louder than you, or more powerful than you. It's not something you distribute because you want to keep the peace or because you fear conflict. Respect, like trust, must be earned. And when you're too friendly, you often bypass that rule. You give respect out like candy and wonder why people keep taking advantage. We live in a culture that confuses politeness with respect, but they are not the same. Politeness is a social behavior. Respect is a value. And when you offer respect prematurely, before someone has shown integrity, consistency, or alignment with your values, you diminish its meaning. You hand out power to people who haven't demonstrated character. And when those people misuse it, you blame yourself for being too trusting, when in reality, you were too eager to be liked. Being friendly is admirable, but it becomes a weakness when it clouds your discernment. Not everyone deserves to sit at the same level in your life. Some people should stay at arm's length until they prove otherwise. And that's not arrogance, that's wisdom, that's self-respect. And if someone has a problem with you expecting them to earn your trust, your time, or your vulnerability, that's a red flag, not your problem to fix. Respect is built over time through action, not through charm, not through flattery, and certainly not through pressure. Someone may say all the right things, appear to be kind, seem generous, but watch their patterns. Watch how they treat others. Watch how they handle inconvenience. Watch how they behave when they don't get what they want. That's where respect is either earned or lost. A friendly person often hands out respect in hopes of being respected in return. They think if I'm just nice enough, humble enough, giving enough, others will reciprocate. But manipulators and narcissists see that as weakness. They don't see your kindness as something noble. They see it as something to exploit. And you will find yourself shocked when people you've gone out of your way for end up being the ones who betray, gossip, or walk away when you need them most. That's why you must stop handing out respect as if it costs nothing, because it costs you everything when it goes to the wrong people. It costs you your peace, your emotional stability, your mental clarity, your sense of safety. Start observing instead of assuming. Start setting standards instead of silently hoping others will rise to meet them. You don't need to be rude, you don't need to be cold, but you do need to be clear. Let people show you who they are before you treat them like they're already worthy of your loyalty. Make them earn access to the deeper parts of you. And don't mistake silence for maturity or friendliness for goodness. Some people wear politeness like a costume, but their intentions are anything but pure. The greatest gift you can give yourself is discernment. The ability to pause, to evaluate, to wait and watch. That is where true strength lives. Not in how loudly you speak or how much you give, but in how wisely you choose who gets the privilege of your respect. Because when you stop handing out respect freely, you start seeing who is really worth keeping in your life. So let's bring it all together, because this message isn't just about being less friendly. It's about waking up to the truth that your time has value, your energy has worth, your kindness has a limit, and your life is not a public service announcement for anyone who feels entitled to a piece of you. Yes, be kind. Yes, be respectful. Yes, lead with love. But do not let your heart become a doormat for the careless. Do not let your loyalty become a leash for the ungrateful. You are not put here to be used, dismissed, overlooked, or drained by people who only remember you when it's convenient. Friendliness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. When you spend your life trying to avoid conflict, you end up living in a constant war within yourself. When you constantly seek to please others, you forget how to honor yourself. And when you lower your standards just to be liked, you invite disrespect, not love, into your life. It's time to change that. It's time to stop handing out unlimited access to people who haven't earned it. Time to stop apologizing for having needs. Time to stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for someone like you. From now on, let your yes be powerful, because it's rare. Let your no be non-negotiable, because it protects your peace. Let your presence be felt, because you no longer overextend just to be seen. And if they call you cold for setting boundaries, let them. If they say you've changed, smile. Growth always looks like rebellion to those who benefited from your silence. If they walk away, let them. You are not for everyone. You are not meant to be everywhere. You are not required to be everything to people who offer you nothing in return. Stand up for yourself, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Speak your truth, not to provoke, but to protect. Choose people who choose you back. Honor your energy like it's sacred, because it is, because you are. And this isn't the end of your kindness. It's the beginning of your power. You are still good. just no longer naive. Still loving, just no longer available to those who confuse your presence with permission. From this moment forward, you don't just show up for others, you show up for yourself. You stop being too friendly and you start being free.